Okay, good evening. We're going to call to order the work session of the Whitefish Community Development Board. And I think we're going to start with Alan, right?
Good evening, Chairman Cornell, members of the board. Alan Tiefenbach, Long Range Planner. I think this will be relatively brief. I just kind of want to give you a summary on what happened at the visioning seminars and then kind of talk about what's going on next. So quick update for those that might be, we're streaming online, so quick update for those that might be online. Visioning is a process where the community forms a mental picture. It happens very early in the process to look at shared values about what makes Whitefish special. Most growth policies are comprehensive plans. They usually have a vision statement, and then there's often like a vision statement for each particular element, like land use, transportation, or something like that. And the plan is supposed to be consistent with those vision statements. So if you recall, we had visioning session February 21st and 22nd. We had some online polling exercises. One of them was word clouds, where we asked people in attendance. This word cloud is a combination of both nights. And actually, we had to do a little bit of tweaking to it to be more accurate. For instance, friendly. You could have said nice, friendly, or cordial, which all mean the same thing. So we found stuff that was all a similar word and put in one word. Otherwise, you had this big mess of words that were all kind of similar. So Luke was nice enough to kind of compile everything together to make it work better. So I'll just run you through quickly some of these word clouds because I think they're kind of fun. So what makes Whitefish unique? It seems like most people said community, friendly, nature, recreation. Feel free to stop me anytime. What do they value about Whitefish? It was very similar, right? People, which, I don't know if I can do much with the growth policy about friendly or people. But friendly, people, walkable, certainly we can. So you can see kind of what the big buzzwords are, and then you can see, some of the smaller things, healthcare, education, tourism, kind of funny, way down at the bottom there. Biggest threat to Whitefish was, not surprisingly, I guess, affordability. I saw some other interesting things in there. Newbies, greed, Gianforte, not what I put in there, but that's what people said. So those are all these larger words are sort of what the majority of people said, and then they vary in size depending on how many people use that particular word or similar words. What do we believe is missing? And that's kind of, I think, no surprises there. Affordable housing, public transportation, and sort of multimodal bike pedestrian infrastructure. Again, this is not necessarily what everybody in Whitefish thinks. This is what was the combination of the 110 people that were here in February. This is the majority of what they thought. Again, so remember we broke everybody up into groups and we had a discussion, and none of this was easy to compile into simple tables, right? I mean, if you saw the way this kind of played, well, you did. Nothing was easy to interpolate and to put into tables. So I did the best that I could. There was more than this, okay? I had like 40 different things, but a lot of them were only said once. So what I did is I compiled the stuff that at least more than one group said. I can give you the full results, but you wouldn't have been able to see it on the screen. But the most important by far was the Whitefish River. Pretty much Whitefish River water quality, pretty much completely unanimous. All the groups said that. Central Avenue, so you can see kind of what the biggies were about to protect, and then what some of the other quotation mark less biggies were. This table, it was where the respondents thought that change was appropriate or expected. There was some question about that. Are you asking us if it's appropriate or for whether it's expected? So I put both. But these are the areas where the respondents thought that this is probably where they were going to see change happen in the city of Whitefish. If I'm going too fast again, stop me, please. This one's going to keep coming up. What is your vision of what Whitefish should be in 20 years? Multimodal, that kind of came to the top of everything. So I was, it was interesting that how much walkability and bikeability and not having to use a car is valued in the city of Whitefish, because I saw that in a lot of the results. Transit was also a big one. I mean, it was kind of over and over again. I saw the same thing with multimodal, transit, affordable housing. Those all kind of kept rising to the top of everything. But again, here's this is the, ranked on any groups, more than 2 groups that responded. Here's what you're seeing here. A little depressing, but this is what the majority of people said were the obstacles to basically progress in Whitefish. Number 1 was the state legislature by a landslide. Then wildfire, not surprising. Short-term rentals, I was actually surprised this one didn't go up higher, because when we did our first surveys, short-term rentals, investment properties, and that were just all over it was just one after the other. So I'm actually surprised that one didn't come up higher. But then there you are again. A lot of it had to do with property investments, corporate out-of-state ownerships, short-term rentals. Okay, so what I'm doing here, I don't expect you to be able to see this well, but I just kind of want to run you through how I did this so that you know there's a method to my madness, okay? What you're seeing here are the maps that came out of the groups. And if you remember, we had people, again, I don't think you can see the colors, but we had people draw green circles or X's around what they thought should be preserved, red about where they thought the change would be appropriate and expected, and then blue is the areas where they thought city limits might change. And a lot of them had stickers, yellow stickers. And I have 10 of these maps. I've taken pictures of all of them. What I did then was, using these maps, I had to try to interpolate this, okay? Again, I know this is kind of tough to see, but you'll see the results are much easier to see. So what I did was I mapped this stuff into the GIS. I did the best I could to try to read scribbles and polygons and put this stuff into the GIS. What you're seeing here on the northern side, so I did it basically the same way that was on the maps, and I did it on the south too. And what I did then is I took these polygons, and a lot of these were overlapping. So there was like kind of all over the board about what people said. Like one group, for instance, drew green polygons around every neighborhood in the city and said, protect all the neighborhoods, right? Protect all the single family residential. It's kind of a hard one. But what I did was I looked at where the polygons overlapped, where there was areas that kept coming up over and over again. People kept showing this particular area, saying this is an area where we think change is going to occur, or this is an area that will be preserved. And then I weighted them based on how many groups said that. So if like 8 groups all pointed to the lake, then that was weighted higher. And if only 1 group pointed to an area, that was weighted lower. And then I display those on the GIS with different symbols based on the weight. Does that make sense? So I did the overlay. I clipped out the areas where there was overlapping, meaning more than 1 group said the same area. I weighted them, and then I put them in the GIS. And this is what you're seeing here. I'll show you the north and then the south, and then I'll show you the composite map. The green is misleading. The green, it means preserve. Solid is almost unanimous. All the groups said this has to be protected. And then hatched means half the group or the majority says this needs to be protected. And then outlines says that like a third of the group. So more than 1. It had to be at least 2 or 3 in order to get a circle. I didn't want this to be, it's somewhat misleading to try to map polygons. I didn't want it to be exact because it's not exact, right? That's why I showed circles and polygons, because I don't know what street or what block or what house. I'm just saying these general areas are where people said this again. So you can kind of get an idea. Big Mountain, the lake, almost unanimous. Everybody said water quality lake has to be protected. Big Mountain came up pretty strong. You can see that Haskell Basin is in there. There was at least a few groups that circled the area where Mountain Gateway was. There was kind of not entirely consensus. If you look around the City Beach area and some of that, and then there's kind of some overlapping with where the red, that quite a few people thought that, or at least half of the groups thought that the Wisconsin area in and around there was going to be change. When I moved down, and then the blue are the areas where the groups anticipated the city limits were going to change. Okay, again, this is not what staff is saying is going to happen. This is purely based on what the people in attendance, how they see the city in 20 years. the city limits are not weighted here. I did the same thing. I had like dotted lines for where one group thought it, and we just decided to show the whole thing. So not all the areas were agreed on by all the groups. This is basically a composite of what all the groups said. You follow me so far? Am I being too confusing or not? Okay, good. This is the south side of the city. So there's a little more going on in here. The red hatched areas is in and around Caro. So most of the groups, more than half, thought they were going to be seeing some kind of change occurring in there. It was kind of interesting in the avenues. If you know the avenues, Columbia, Kalispell, our historic neighborhoods, it was kind of a mix, right? So more people thought that that area should be preserved, but then there was at least a quarter of the groups that said, no, actually there's going to be change there. So, what do we do with that? I guess that will play out how it plays out. So that was just kind of interesting. Some of the people thought the avenue should change. Other people said that's important. Found that interesting. So most of what and then obviously down by the Highway 40 and in and around there, that's all areas people see annexations occurring and more of the change occurring. The Whitefish River is solid green because it was pretty much unanimous. Everybody said preserve the Whitefish River. Here, just to kind of give you a view, this is what the whole thing looked like. This, again, is just a general map. This is going to be posted, for those that are taking pictures, this is going to be posted on the, no, fine, you can do it, but this is going to be posted on the engagement site. You'll be able to download this if you want it. Give me a couple of days. There'll be a newsletter alert that's going to go out, and these maps will be posted, so you can see them if you want them. I don't care if you take a picture of them, but it'll be easier for you. So this is kind of a general circle diagrams of the way that the 110 people that were here see the city growing or not growing or developing or not developing in 20 years. Everybody so far, so good? Again, it's not us. This is the people that showed. The 110, though, doesn't mean that the whole city said this. It just means that the 110 people that showed up here thought this, right? There's 9,000 other people that didn't come. So we posted most of what happened at the visioning sessions online. I wasn't able to do all of it. We didn't do the city limits one. That was a little tricky because if you saw the widgets were kind of limited. We had an online map widget. I saw Steve commenting on a few of them. I saw your name. So the online mapping had point data. You had to basically put a point into an area. We had green for preserve, red for areas of change, and we said put a point on an area. And so we got 43 different comments on the map on that one. And then we had the surveys that were pretty much the same as the surveys that we had, the group exercises that we had here. And I got 23 of those responses. And the comments were actually relatively similar. There was no surprises. It was all kind of the biggest priorities, which I'll run through in a second, were all kind of basically the same. I do not expect you to be able to see this. I mapped those point data into this map so that we have it. I mean, I can show you and zoom in on it on the GIS, but you can't see it here. But I did put together this table to kind of give you an idea of these are what these points are saying. I thought it was just a side note. I thought it was kind of funny that Nathan Dugan yesterday told me that there was at least 3 points on his house that said areas of density. So, whether or not that was, sarcastic or not, he thought it was kind of funny, and so did I. Most of the majority of the points that you see here are where they were saying areas of density, where they can see more density. I didn't change them by color, so you really can't tell, unless you want me to. I don't really want to point them all out, but that was the thing that had the most. The most that I got was area, and by the most people, it wasn't just one person, where people saying where density should occur. But these are basically what that map says. So where the density is, there was a couple that showed where the water access was, which kind of probably going to happen anyway because it's city beach and some of that. There was 2 places that were identified as parking structure, 2 different viaducts. One was the obvious place off of 2nd, and then the other was off of, Dave, you said it the other day, now I can't remember, Columbia or possibly? Yeah, I think it was off of Columbia, maybe over by the depot park. A couple dots talked about view sheds, some transportation ideas about upgrading the transportation grid, those kinds of things, some infill. The areas of there were a lot of people that said preserve parks and trails, and I didn't map those because those are either in easements or in perpetuity or owned by the city. So it's very unlikely, not impossible, but very unlikely those are going to change. The parks, things that are owned by the city, they're preserved anyway. This was both online and the people that showed up to the visioning. This is kind of the top things that everybody said. I'd be happy to give you this information if you want it. It's a lot to have to go through it and try to categorize it. By a landslide, small town community kind of, it was like, that's everybody, well, not everybody, but like a majority of people talked about they wanted Whitefish to have a small town character, may or may not be small town size, but they talked about small town character. A very strong one was multimodal. I heard that over and over again about people not having to drive. Affordable housing. So these, all of these probably aren't surprises, but when we're writing a vision statement and we say, how does the city of Whitefish see Whitefish in 20 years? Here are the things, majority that I was told by people. Now, there's a whole lot of other things, right? One person said no more apartments, and another person said get rid of all the houses, right? So I'm not going to put that in the vision statement. But the majority of the groups, this is what they see Whitefish being in 20 years, both online. So we're talking 150 people, which is not representative of the city, right? Okay, so what is next? As we mentioned, we are working on we're now going to be doing some area-specific visioning in different areas of the city. So we're actually taking them out into the neighborhoods. Much harder to find a facility to do this than you could imagine. I called many, many places. This was very difficult. But these are going to be more specific to quadrants. So we've broken the city into 4 quadrants, and we're going to be visioning exercises relating to like community character and identifying neighborhoods and trying to talk about your favorite areas in your neighborhood and where do you like to walk and where do you not like to walk, those kinds of things. That's this next visioning. You are, if you're signed up on the engagement site, which I hope you are, there's going to be a newsletter going out within the next few days announcing this, and this will be on a flyer showing you. And there's 4 different colors here. These represent different areas of town. And we are telling the residents that if wherever you live, we suggest that you go to that particular visioning. I mean, we're trying just really because of merely crowd control too. Is the size of the staffing and the size of our facilities. I don't want to have 400 people all coming to the same meeting. So plus people are more familiar with their particular area of town. So we're saying residents. Pick where you live, here's the date, and here's the facility where this is going to be happening. This visioning will be happening at 6 p.m. Again, you will get more details, but here's the dates: April 25th, May 9th, May 23rd, June 13th. So community development board members, I suggest, either come to all of them or come to the one that's in your quadrant. And I don't know if there's a spread of you in all 4, but I think the statistics probably are close. I don't know if any of you live on the north side, though. I don't think any of you live on the north side. Oh, Toby. Oh, that's right. You've got the studio. So Toby lives on the north side. So there probably is a decent distribution of, I think you all live in all different 4 areas. So pick the area. Hopefully you can make that date. If you can't make that date, then choose another date. It will be 6 o'clock. And again, if you're on the engagement site, you'll get an alert in the next few days. I've mostly written the newsletter. I got to have Dave review it and everybody look at it, make sure it's good before I send it out to 600 people. There's a lot of people are signing up. I don't know if I really have that number right, but it's way over 400 now. So that'll be going out in the next few days, and it will be talking about this as far as a few other things. A couple other, any questions about all this stuff or comments before I had a couple of other things?
I'd like to leave a little bit of time for public comment.
Yeah, sure. Okay. Last thing is, if you didn't know, the Whitefish High School art students also use the growth policy, and their artwork is out there, and we'll be telling people to go out there and look at it. It's really cool. And then your next session will be at 5, and there's going to be a presentation by an economic development consultant as part of the growth policy. So know it will be at 5. that'll be a pretty technical conversation, I think. So it'll be half an hour presentation, half an hour for questions, comments. With that, I'm done.
Okay, thanks, Alan. First of all, any board members have any comments? Okay, oh, go ahead, Toby. Quickly,
Excellent job,
Thank you, sir.
as always. Thank you.
Then I'll open the floor for public comment on the growth policy. If anybody wants here to speak on it, just step up to the microphone. Please state your name and address for the record.
Joe Courtney,
Yes, sir.
535 Colorado Avenue. On those graphs and all the circles and everything, I didn't see anything related to putting an overpass or an underpass on East 2nd Street. Anything on that?
It actually it is. It's just not real visible here. If you see my pointer, right there, there was several people that recommended a viaduct there. And in the point data, again, you can't see it. There were a few people that recommended that, and there was another viaduct. I think it was right here by Depot Park, but you can't see that. So I actually viaduct was mentioned very frequently so that's not really an area of preservation or area of change, but it is something everybody said viaduct on 2nd Avenue.
Okay, yeah, and hopefully Edgewood is going to remain